America, welcome back. I'm Dale. I'm here with co-host Cliff Bloddick with another powerful episode that you do not want to miss. Don't sleep on this channel, because don't nothing come to a sleeper but a dream. Today's topic is a hot one. Let's get right into it, Cliff.
Today's topic is what about Ukraine? Because it's on the news. That's all they're talking about. To understand Ukraine first, the U.S. news is 90% omission and propaganda. Most of what you see on the news is completely twisted. And the reason is that ultra-rich and corporations own these news companies. They own CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. They're telling you what they want you to think, not the real facts. So with that out of the way, the history of the situation in Ukraine starts many years ago when Reagan was president. The USSR, it broke up, and all the different countries that composed the USSR, they went their separate ways. NATO is an organization that's headed up by the US between European countries, so that if one country has a problem, the rest of the countries come to their rescue. All these countries that join NATO, they have an obligation to spend 2% of their entire economic output on armament, on the military. So it really ups their military spending. And as part of the agreement, they usually give money to the United States to buy weapons. The United States is a big arms dealer. They're the largest arms supplier on the planet. So it's a huge windfall for U.S. military suppliers. And so Russia didn't want these countries buying U.S. weaponry and then putting U.S. military bases on their soil. To give you a picture of what that is like, if the Soviet Union went and had Mexico and Canada join an alliance with them and start buying weaponry from them, and then tried to put nuclear ballistic missiles pointed at the United States, located in Mexico and Canada, the United States would be like, hell no, we're not going to tolerate that. That would be war. Well, that's what the United States is trying to do, or at least the war hawks within the United States. Years ago, it was the Republicans that were war hawks, and the Democrats were the party of peace. Over time, it's flipped, where the Democrats have become the party of war. You have this lie being perpetrated on the American people that the Russians are evil and that the Russians are out for war, that the Russians invaded Ukraine for no reason. What really happened is that the United States broke 14 agreements in a row with Russia to not expand NATO and to not expand the U.S. military bases encroaching and encircling Russia. To give you an insight of what kind of lying and deceit this is, it's the same kind of lying and deceit the United States did to the Native Americans. The United States had agreements with the Native Americans for years and years saying, okay, you move a little bit more westward onto these Indian reservations, and then we'll leave you alone and we'll be at peace and everything will be okay. Because previous to that, the United States was trying to commit genocide, and their goal was to eradicate all Native Americans. The U.S. military had a mandate to do that. And so they would sign treaties putting the Indians on Indian reservations, and then they would find minerals or find other valuable things on these Indian reservations, and then they would say, oh, treaty's no good anymore. We're going to have to move you further west because we found something on the land, or we decided that that would make good farmland for settlers, or whatever their excuse was. They broke hundreds of treaties with the Native Americans. Over and over, their word was worth nothing, and they got away with it. So they're trying to do the same thing to Ukraine. Ukraine had a duly elected democratic government. And this CIA lady, Victoria Nuland, she arranged a coup to overthrow the democratically elected government in Ukraine and to put a U.S. puppet in there that wanted to join NATO, because the democratically elected government in Ukraine didn't want any part of NATO because they knew what would happen. And so Zelensky, he's a puppet of the U.S. that they put in Ukraine, and then he wants to join NATO. And Russia finally invaded Ukraine. In this case, this is totally an outcome of the U.S. meddling in other people's business all around the world. The war between Ukraine and Russia is a proxy war. What that means is that these war hawks in the U.S., they really want to be at war with Russia. But since Russia is a nuclear superpower, they know they can't directly fight Russia. So they're going to fight Russia on the sly by funding Ukraine. So these people don't care about Ukraine. They don't care about freedom. They don't care about the Ukrainian people, because anybody that cared about the Ukrainian people would never have put them up to fight a war that they could never win. It's like if you were a bully and you wanted to fight against another kid, but you had already gotten trouble 2 times already and they had a 3 strikes program and you didn't want to get expelled from school. What would you do? Well, if you were an evil bully, you would get some kid and you would trick them into fighting instead of you doing it yourself. That's what a proxy war is. In the case of the United States, they want to be fighting Russia directly, but they can't, because they would be in a hot nuclear war with Russia. So instead, they're putting Ukraine up to do it.
Okay, with all this war stuff going on, where's the repercussions on killing all these innocent kids that have nothing to do with it?
The U.S. war hawks, they're the ones that instigated this. And there's some European war hawks, then they instigated it as well. So the blood lies with them, because they're the ones that put Ukraine up to doing this. They don't give a damn about those kids. They don't give a damn about freedom. They're bloodthirsty war hawks. War is a business. And these defense contractors, they make huge amounts of money by war. And so they don't give a damn about these people. They threw Ukraine under the bus completely. And then this narrative of defending democracy, it's just a propaganda narrative that they feed the U.S. population. They figure that most of the U.S. population is too dumb to know any better, or they're too busy working or something. And if they say this narrative enough times, oh, we're defending Ukrainian freedom. If they just keep saying that and keep saying it and keep saying it, enough of the U.S. population will buy this garbage where they could continue their efforts to make war. That's all it is. So the blood is on their hands.
Wow. So what do you think American people are saying with this incident with Trump and Zelensky?
Well, I think that Trump is completely doing a 180 and he's going against the grain. So what he's doing is he's recognizing this fact that we should have never been expanding NATO. In fact, after World War II, NATO should have been disbanded. There's no reason for NATO to exist besides selling weapons. It's a weapon sales organization. It's not a defense organization. I think Trump recognizes that. And now we get to a point where it sounds like I'm defending Trump. Okay, so a lot of people are going to say, oh, woo, he must be a Trump-tard. He's defending Trump. So let's say a few things about that. A broken clock tells the correct time twice a day. So like at 2:15 in the afternoon, if the broken clock says 2:15, it'll be correct. And at 2:15 in the morning, that broken clock will again be correct. So twice a day. Mm-hmm. And so a person that says that broken clocks, most of the time they don't tell the right time, I could get with that. But when somebody crosses the line, they say, the broken clock is evil. I hate broken clocks. And then you say, the broken clock tells the correct time twice a day. And then the person says, I don't want to hear that. Nothing it ever says can be right. Okay, then they've crossed over the line where they're into derangement. And so people need to recognize the difference between not being on the same page as somebody and not liking a lot of what they do, and then crossing over the line where you no longer can see what's going on, you no longer can see the truth, and whatever that person does is automatically bad just because it's that person. It's having nothing to do with the facts. You start foaming at the mouth every time the person is even mentioned, and that's Trump derangement. And I'm not just going to call out Trump derangement. On the other side, there was Biden derangement. There's all sorts of political derangement. And so it's when people can no longer see straight and they become politically rabid. There's no reason for us to be in a war with Russia. No reason. And so when you look at it historically, how many countries has Russia invaded? How many countries does Russia have military bases in? I mean, just looking at the facts. Because according to the propaganda that is perpetrated by the U.S. media, Russia's this rogue country that runs around constantly taking over other countries. When you look at the actual history of the last 50 years, it's the U.S. that's done that. So this is deflection. The U.S. is the one that's constantly at war for no reason with other countries, inventing weapons of mass destruction. Any country it doesn't like, it invents something to go in there and have a war. How many countries has the U.S. desecrated? Indirectly, they've desecrated the Ukraine. This is the U.S. bidding. They've desecrated Vietnam. They desecrated Afghanistan. They desecrated Iraq. The list goes on and on. How many countries has Russia desecrated? A fraction of what the United States has done. So when you're talking about portraying Russia as the evil empire, that's deflection. It's time to look in the mirror. Russia has its share of things that it's screwed up on, but as far as like being the evil empire, it's time to look in the mirror. This is the evil empire right here, not Russia. And Russia has called to eliminate the nuclear weapons stockpile and have nuclear weapons elimination treaties with the United States, and it's the U.S. that refuses to eliminate the nuclear weapons. That speaks volumes right there.
Well, we're coming to an end of this session, buddy.
As a closing note, this killing in Ukraine needs to stop. It's not serving anybody. It's leading up to what possibly could be a world war and a nuclear exchange that would kill everybody. And it promotes military weapons companies making a boatload of money off weapons sales. The U.S. needs to find another way to make money instead of selling weapons all around the world. We don't need to be the world's weapons supplier. In every conflict around the world where people are dying, U.S. weapons are involved. I mean, that just shouldn't be. That's not the land of liberty and the land of the free, promoting democracy when we're the world's top weapons supplier. The U.S. population needs to wake up and stop believing the garbage propaganda that's perpetrated by our U.S. media.
So we're going to come to an end on this session, America. And before we get out of here, once again, hit the subscribe button. Pick up the book, Plant-Based. And let me tell you something, America. If I tell you a rooster dip snuff, you better look up on this wing and you'll find the snuff box. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.